What's going on, guys? Today we're going to go over some more metal work that I've been doing to the 67 Mustang, and as you can see, it is an extremely cut up 67 Mustang, but we're slowly getting stuff pieced back together. All right, guys, so as you can see, I already replaced all this stuff down here. On these cars, it's all welded on, so you have to cut a bunch of stuff off. And then when one panel goes bad, usually several panels around it are also bad. So these projects can actually turn into quite extensive very quickly. And that's kind of what we got going on here. But the nice thing is that they actually make every piece that you would ever need for this car. I mean, after all, it is a Mustang. So I had to cut all this stuff off, weld everything back in there, make sure it lined all up, and did both sides of the floor. So now we're getting much closer. We need to address what's going on in the rear. So I'm going to show you kind of what we were working with very first, go through some of the ways that I try to address this stuff. And as you can see back there on the back, there is already a new quarter panel back there. So we're slowly tackling this thing one piece at a time. I just want to address something before you go cutting panels off. One thing, like if you're gonna, put a new quarter on, I would get your door mocked up in place. And keep in mind these and I'm gonna go over this in the video too, these quarters are not gonna be perfect. So more than likely, fresh out of the box, it's not gonna be an absolutely perfect line right there. So that's where you have to go and either modify the door just a little bit or modify the quarter panel just so everything lines back up. So you may get lucky and have one side that looks great and then the other side might look terrible. So the big thing though is put the door where it's supposed to be, make sure it shuts good and everything like that, and then fit your quarter panel to look good around that. And then another thing is you want to make sure that your door shuts nice and smoothly like that. I'm not having to crank on it and slam it and push it around to get it to line up. I just shut it. So that's a good door shut. Also, the tubs were completely rotted out of this, so I had to put new tubs on. And for those of you who are looking, this side is not completely welded in place yet, so this gap is humongous, and I know that. But that's because I got to bring the quarter panel over to match this body line all the way around here. So that's why I'm saying I would tackle this thing one side at a time. It just makes it easier. You set your body line all the way around the trunk, and then you weld your quarter panel to it. Another thing to worry about too is obviously, if you're cutting a bunch of metal off, you need to make sure you're putting some kind of structure inside of this to keep it from flexing, and it'll just kind of keep everything in place. So obviously the way the car was when it was brought to me, it had pretty good body lines. So we should be able to replicate those fairly easily without any kind of crazy modifications. If you're wondering what kind of shape this car was in, you can see tons of holes right there, and then tons of holes there at the bottom, and then some holes right here. All right, guys, do not panic. I have this under control. The Mustang, this whole passenger side of it is completely cut off. So this side, for some reason, was where most of the corrosion was. And I don't know why, but that's just the way it was. The floors were more shot on this side. This whole section over here was all shot. This whole quarter panel was mostly shot. So we have no option but to completely remove the whole quarter panel. And I know this looks crazy if you've never done this, but it's not that crazy whenever you understand like how all this stuff goes back together. So first of all, there's a leaded seam here. And basically you're just gonna heat it up with a torch and literally just start scraping it away. And sometimes it'll even melt off. But basically you want to get the leaded seam completely out of there. And basically what I did was I just took a body saw and I just went all the way around close to those little weld points and cut the whole side of it off. I started sectioning the wheel tubs, so just kind of taking it in big chunks. And again, that's why half the Mustang's laying on the floor right there. I feel like working it in these smaller sections and sectioning this whole piece up and just cutting it off slowly makes it way easier, because then you're left with pieces like this. This is where the two tubs go together because they come in halves. I went ahead and blasted the back of that off, and then you can actually still see the layer of the quarter that's still up underneath there. Like I did on the front, I made some bracing just to stabilize this some more so it's not moving around, and it just kind of locks it in place. So then you can see right here where I've been working on getting the old quarter, that part of the quarter on the flange here, been just kind of working on getting it off. And then obviously the last section is all the way up here, kind of meets against the door. So first of all, obviously we got to put this piece on here. So we've got the piece laying here on the ground, and it was shipped with a little bit of a bend in it, but not a big deal. These never are sent perfectly. So this will sit in there like that, and then this hole gets centered up in the middle of the frame rail, so you can just kind of reach your finger in there and feel when it's centered. So that just gives you a rough idea where that thing's going to go. I think I've got it fitted pretty good. And then obviously I took measurements from the old tank, because this has like the drop-in style tank. So took measurements from the old tank and made sure that it's perfectly in line where it's supposed to be. Should be ready to go. But first of all, we're going to get this mounted in there. One thing real quick, make sure that you coat this and obviously clean up inside the frame rail. I'm going to too. But make sure you grind it all down, make sure it's all smooth, nice metal. Up here you can see I still got a little bit more grinding to do. But when you have something that looks kind of like this area here, that's something that you can definitely work with. So, and then obviously make sure that you use some kind of weld through primer, any area that's going to be like touching metal to metal. Alright guys, so now that section's all done and all welded in, now the next thing is going to be the wheel arches. So basically I've prepped up everything. You can see all my metal to metal points. I have sprayed self-etching primer on there, and I've also got the tubs fitted. Alright, so you can order these a couple different ways. Some of them are one piece where they're already welded together. And then you can get two pieces where you have to actually weld them together. So now that we're already here, I have fit both sides together, because I like these two pieces because then I know exactly like where I need to weld them together. Sometimes they don't always get put correctly, so I just like to get them all separate, and then I can kind of piece them in there, weld them the way I want them. So you've got these two flanges here. I have drilled holes through one side where the two halves made up there. The whole inside of that is lined with some more weld through primer, especially on something like this where it's two pieces of metal put together. This will rust out so fast if there's not some kind of protective weld through primer in the middle. So I've got it clamped where I want it for right now. I'm going to go ahead and weld it along this flange, and then I will be ready to actually install it and then weld it in place inside the car. Alright guys, so just a reminder that these videos kind of jump around. So I've started on the driver's side, and the passenger side over there is pretty much completed for now until I go and button up everything. But and then going from this, you're basically just putting this panel on. The fuel tank will mount in this area. So we're just going to replicate this same process that we did on this side over here. It's not fully welded in there yet. As you can see, I can pull it towards it. But I want to make sure I have everything fitted, and I'm going to get this thing up in the air a little bit more so that I'm not crawling around so much. And honestly, there's so much stuff that's coming off of this. I mean, you know, I'm just trying to do it in sections and keep the old stuff there for a point of reference. So as you can see, like right here, I've cut into that way more than I need to because I've got to replace this piece and also this piece. So it just gives me a rough idea of where this stuff's going to go. I get the deck lid mounted in place, and then I'm going to know where to leave everything else. All right, guys, so now that everything is welded up, again, the door shuts great. Body lines are as close as they can be. This is all, you can manipulate this super easy with body filler and just adjusting your door gaps, stuff like that. So I'm happy with the way that this one looks. You can see the lines are very close. And you know, again, you know, an aftermarket panel is not going to be completely perfect. You get it as close as you possibly can, and then you can make corrections with, you know, everything else that's available to us, like body filler, obviously doing some metal work. But yeah, so basically I'm going to go in here and replicate the factory leaded seam all the way across there. The panels are definitely in place, but I'm going to go in and do all the finish work and that kind of stuff when it's up in the air on a lift. So all right, guys, so that's pretty much going to wrap up this video. I just wanted to show you the work that I've been doing on the 67 Mustang. And again, I know I say this in a lot of videos, but I don't have any kind of special schooling, no kind of class or anything that I've attended has, you know, taught me how to do this kind of stuff. I have taken some online, you know, like fuel injection courses and stuff, just to kind of understand how that stuff works. But as far as body work and the stuff that you've seen on the channel, completely self-taught. So you guys are definitely capable of going and, you know, doing this same kind of thing yourself. Don't be scared of it. It's actually fairly simple once you understand the processes that go into it. It's very time consuming. It takes a long time to do it correctly, but I love doing it and I love sharing the videos, and hopefully you guys can learn something. Anyways, hope that you guys enjoyed the video, maybe even learned something from it. Let me know down in the comments, and I would appreciate it if you guys would subscribe to the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel has been growing pretty steadily, and I am trying to just completely blow this thing out of the water. So if you don't mind, I would appreciate if you would subscribe to me. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.